My name is Liam Carter, and I was born in a small, forgettable town in Vermont, tucked between mountains and valleys that always seemed quieter than they should be. I grew up in a house that sat on a road with no sidewalks, just endless trees and the sound of wind through pine needles. My mom, Heather, always wanted a daughter, according to my dad, Ben. She was devastated when I was born. I don't remember any of that, obviously, but the first memory I truly have is of my mother sitting on the porch, her face half lit by the amber hue of dusk, gently brushing the hair of a little girl. I didn't recognize. "This is your new sister," she told me. Her name was Eo. I was barely 3. Ea had just turned 4. She'd been adopted from a foster home a few towns over. No major trauma, no record of abuse, at least not officially. My mom said she had so much personality, and she looked at Ea with a glow I don't think she ever had when she looked at me. I didn't feel jealousy, just confusion. She wasn't like me. I remembered that right away. I'd smile. She wouldn't. I'd run toward a balloon. She'd stare at it until it popped the way she blinked. Slow, deliberate, made it seem like she was always watching instead of just seeing for the first month. Everything was fine then. Weird things started happening. It started with my toys being broken, not just snapped in half. Surgically dismantled. My favorite stuffed dog was cut open, stitching, peeled back like skin. All the stuffing pulled out and arranged in a circle around it. My blocks were glued together in disturbing, impossible shapes. Crayons appeared, melted together, fused into one solid black clump. I was too little to explain any of it properly, but I knew it was Ida. I'd find her in my room. When I wasn't there, once I caught her holding my baby blanket under her nose, breathing in deeply with her eyes closed. Another time, I woke up in the middle of the night and saw her standing in the hallway. She wasn't doing anything, just standing, holding one of our kitchen knives. When I told my mom, she said, "She's sleepwalking, honey. Some kids do that. It's okay." My dad was less dismissive. One night, he stood outside my room all night. I didn't find out until years later that he saw her again, standing in front of my door with that same knife, motionless. He never told my mom about it. I didn't want her to. "Give Ida back," he explained. Later, she was broken if she thought she failed as a mother again. By the time we were both 8, Ea had become more distant but more erratic. She'd talk to herself at breakfast, whispering under her breath as she stirred her cereal until it went soggy. She'd stare at corners of the room and laugh, softly, like she saw someone there that we didn't. I tried to tell Mom again. She waved me off. "It's just imagination." She's a creative child. She wasn't creative. She was cruel. At night, she'd sneak into my room and move things, not break, just to move a drawing I taped to the wall would be in the trash, a sock under my pillow, my closet door left cracked open, no matter how tightly I shut it every single night. Then came the scratching. I woke up one night to a horrible sound, wet, violent. I crept to her door. It was open. She was sitting on the carpet, legs folded, her fingernails tearing at her forearm. Blood smeared across her pale skin, her eyes red, wide open, didn't blink. Once, as she scratched and scratched and scratched, she was smiling my scream. Brought my parents running the next morning. She was gone. They didn't tell me much, just that Isla was going away for a while. I didn't ask questions. I didn't care. I just wanted peace, and I had it for a while. 3 years passed. My mom talked about Isla constantly, like she'd just gone to a summer camp and was about to return. Dad avoided the subject. He'd changed during that time. Drank more, smoked more, stayed late at work. Then, on my 11th birthday, I came home from school to find balloons, cake, and Lisa. She looked normal, different, calmer. She was taller, her hair longer. She wore a yellow dress. She even smiled, surprise. My mom sang, holding Esau's hand, like nothing had happened. I looked at my dad. He didn't say anything. We had a small party, just us. Isa gave me a homemade card. It said, in shaky handwriting, "Happy birthday, Liam. I missed you. I'm better now." I tried to believe her that night. We played board games until bedtime. Isla was quiet, cordial, like a ghost of herself. Maybe they gave her medication. Maybe it was therapy. At 1:46 a.m., I woke up, my arm burned. I looked over. Isa was standing beside my bed, knife in hand. Her eyes were empty. I looked down and saw blood running down my arm. I could see part of the muscle. The pain hadn't fully registered, but it came fast. She smiled, that smile, a grin, too wide for her face. I want what's inside you, she whispered. Everything went black. I woke up in a hospital room with the smell of antiseptic in the air, and my mother sobbing beside me. What happened? I rasped. She just shook her head. She's gone. Where is she? I asked again. She's gone. Okay. Liam, she repeated. Forever. They moved us away. After that, a new town, new school, no one talked about ISA anymore. Not even my dad. I had surgeries, lot skin, grafts, physical therapy. Nightmares, always Isa. Always the knife. By the time I turned 15, I'd built up a wall in my mind. Isa became more myth than memory until I got the letter. No return address, no stamp, just one sentence. Handwritten on plain white paper, you never let me finish. I screamed. My dad said it was a prank. Mom stopped eating for 3 days. We changed our locks, installed cameras, but nothing ever showed up on them for 2 years. I didn't get another message. I convinced myself I imagined it until I went to college. I moved into a dorm 2 states away, 3 weeks into my first semester. I found a folded note tucked inside my jacket pocket in my dorm closet. You still bleed the same. I hadn't told anyone about Isla, not my roommates. It's not even my therapist. How did she know where I was? How did she find me? Campus police brushed it off. No fingerprints, no footage. Could be someone pulling a sick joke. But I knew I moved again. Then a year later, I got a job at a bookstore, quiet place, secluded. One night, just before closing, a woman came in wearing a yellow dress. She didn't say anything, just walked the aisles. I froze. Every part of me screamed, run. But when I went to confront her, she was gone. The dress lay folded on the floor. Inside it, a note. You're all grown up now. I wonder what you look like inside. I haven't slept more than 3 hours a night in over a year. I see her in mirrors, in crowds. Once, I swear, I saw her reflection in the window, but I wasn't there. Only she was. I changed my name, moved to Canada, started over. But 2 nights ago, I woke up with a stinging pain in my leg. 3 long scratches, not deep, just enough to let me know she's still out there. She's still watching, and she's not finished yet. I was never really scared of my sister until the week of my 14th birthday. My name's Naomi. I live in a quiet neighborhood just outside Ashburn, Virginia, with my mom and what used to be my older sister, Ivy. My dad left when I was 5, and since then, it's always just been the 3 of us. Ivy's a year and a half older than me. She would have been 16 this October. We were never the type of siblings who got along. Ivy was complicated. When I was younger, she'd cut the heads off my Barbie dolls and stick them in the freezer. One time, when I was 7, she pushed me down the stairs because I wouldn't let her borrow my glitter markers. I ended up with a fractured wrist. When Mom asked what happened, Ivy swore I tripped. She's just plain Naomi. My mom always said, brushing it off, it's just sibling stuff. She doesn't mean anything by it. I never believed that there was something wrong about the way Ivy smiled when I cried, the way she'd get real quiet during dinner and stare at nothing for whole minutes, like she was listening to something I couldn't hear. Sometimes I'd wake up with my hair cut uneven or my shoes filled with dirt. Ivy would shrug and say, it must have been the house settling, or maybe I did it in my sleep. But by the time we both hit our teens, things calmed down. Or maybe I just got better at staying out of her way. She stopped the weird pranks. We barely spoke. It was like we lived in 2 different houses, even though we shared a bathroom. I actually started to feel safer until 3 weeks before my birthday. It started with Ivy humming just this low, tuneless melody I'd never heard before. At first, thought it was coming from her room at night. Then I heard it in the hall, in the kitchen, even in the bathroom when I got up at 3 o'clock a.m. 2 p. that same hum like a lullaby with no end. I asked her about it once. "Why do you hum that creepy tune all the time, all the time?" I said, trying to sound casual. She looked at me and grinned, because it keeps the voices quiet. Laughed nervously, hoping she was joking, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. It never did. The night before my birthday, I walked past her room and saw her sitting cross-legged on her bed, just staring at the wall. The room was dark, except for one candle flickering on her desk. I paused and said, "You good?" She turned her head slow, like it was stiff or heavy. "You'll like what I got you," she said. "It's something really special." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded and backed away. On the morning of my birthday, I found her standing in the hallway outside my room, holding something behind her back. Her eyes were wide, and her hair was soaking wet, like she'd just stepped out of the shower, even though it was 6:30 a.m. "Happy birthday," she said. I hesitated. "Thanks." She revealed a small, crudely wrapped box with shiny black paper. I opened it slowly. Inside, with a lock of my own hair tied with a red ribbon. "What the hell, Ivy?" I stepped back. She giggled. "I cut it while you were sleeping? You didn't even wake up." I dropped the box. My heart pounded. "I'm telling Mom," I said, turning. That's when she grabbed my wrist. Her grip was cold, freezing like ice. She leaned close, and her expression changed. "You don't have to tell her." She whispered, her mouth too close to my ear. "She wouldn't believe you anyway." Then she skipped away, humming that awful tune that night. I locked my door. I was too scared to sleep. Every creak made me jump. I kept staring at the ceiling, at the shadows in the corners of the room. Somewhere after 2 o'clock a.m., I must have drifted off. When I opened my eyes, she was standing over me. Her face was inches from mine. She wasn't blinking. Her mouth stretched into a crooked, unnatural grin. Her eyes looked glassy, like she wasn't even seeing me, just looking. I screamed. She didn't move. I panicked and slapped her. She tilted her head slowly like a bird and smiled wider. I jumped out of bed, ran to the door, and threw it open. Just as my mom was walking down the hall, her face twisted in confusion. "What's going on?" she asked, eyes darting between me and the empty room behind me. She was here, Ivy. She was watching me sleep. My mom's expression froze. Her voice trembled. "Naomi, what are you talking about, Ivy? She was just here." I stopped. Ivy was gone. The room was empty. The air was cold. My mom stared at me for a long time, then placed a hand on my shoulder. "Naomi, Ivy died 2 years ago." I dropped to the floor, when she knelt beside me. "We've talked about this, baby. Remember the fire?" I shook my head. "No, she's alive. I saw her just now. She gave me a box of my hair this morning. She's been..." Mom's face crumbled. "Naomi, you've been under so much stress, sweetie. Ivy's been gone. She died in the fire at Aunt Lorna's house. Remember that winter break we buried her? You gave a speech, but I didn't remember that I remembered her smile, her voice, her pranks, the way she smelled like eucalyptus shampoo. I remembered her humming just last night." I ran to Ivy's room. Everything was gone. Empty shelves, bare walls. The room looked like it hadn't been lived in for years. That night, I didn't sleep. I pulled the black gift box from the trash. It was still there. My hair, the red ribbon, a faint whisper of humming when I held it close. I didn't tell Mom. She already thought I was losing it. Over the next few days, I heard Ivy's voice in odd places, in the shower, in my closet sometimes. I'd feel someone tug at my shirt, or cold breath on my neck. Once my phone glitched and played a video of Ivy smiling into the camera and whispering, "Don't forget me." I started researching. I even snuck out to a local library to look into hauntings, psychosis, hallucinations, anything. What I learned chilled me. Trauma can sometimes block painful memories and spirits. They're often strongest on anniversaries. Found Mom's scrapbook tucked deep in the storage closet. Inside was Ivy's obituary. Ivy Laura Bellamy, age 13, died in house here. No foul play suspected. My head pounded. I flipped through more pages and found a picture from the funeral. There I was standing by the casket, holding a doll. I had no memory of it. Why had I forgotten all of this? The next week, things got worse. The humming grew louder once. I woke up to find the word "remember" carved into my closet door. My shoes were soaked. My hair was shorter. Again, I started talking to her in the mirror in my dreams. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered one night. A soft voice answered in the dark, "Because you let me die." The memories flooded back in pieces. That night at Aunt Lorna's house, the candles, the game we played hide and seek in the attic ivy. Lighting matches me, telling her not to deflame, catching the curtain to smoke my screams, her face disappearing. Behind the fire, I never told anyone that she screamed my name. Before the ceiling collapsed, I ran. Mom said the fire was an accident. That Ivy got trapped upstairs, that it wasn't my fault, but Ivy thought otherwise. The last time I saw her, it was midnight. She was sitting on my bed, the humming louder than ever. Her voice was soft. I was just playing. Tears ran down my face. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to leave you." She tilted her head. "I know." Then she vanished. That was 6 months ago. Her room is still empty, but the closet door in my room still says "remember." Sometimes I still wake up to humming, and every year, the week of my birthday, I feel her watching me, waiting, just playing. I never believed in signs from the afterlife. I used to laugh when people talked about seeing their loved ones in dreams or hearing their voices just before finding out they'd passed. My family isn't superstitious. We weren't raised that way. We were practical people, realists, or at least I thought we were. I should start from the beginning though, before everything fell apart. My name is Lena Mercer, and I grew up in a small town just outside of Ashland, Oregon. Our town wasn't anything special. Quiet neighborhoods, thick pine trees, hugging every road, in the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's dogs by name. I lived in a 2-story house with my parents and my older sister, Lena. Elena was 2 years older than me, beautiful, calm, and kind in a way that wasn't performative. She wasn't perfect, but she was always good to me when we were little. She used to sing to me when I had nightmares. And even as we got older and she started hanging out with friends more than with me, she always made time. Always. I was 15 in the spring of 2016. Elena had just turned 17 that month. She'd gone on a trip with her friends, an overnight cabin stay for a friend. Maddie's birthday, my parents were driving to Eugene for my uncle's 50th surprise party, but I didn't want to go. The idea of spending a whole night making small talk with second cousins was my definition of hell, so I convinced them to let me stay home alone. I was thrilled. A whole Saturday night to myself. I made a bowl of instant noodles, queued up a cheesy horror flick on Netflix, and curled up on the couch with a blanket. It was chilly outside, the kind of spring evening where the cold sneaks up your sleeves and your toes. Never get quite warm, but inside, everything felt safe, familiar. By 11:30 p.m., I was getting sleepy. I rinsed my bowl, locked the doors, and went upstairs. My room faced the backyard, tall trees barely lit by the streetlights a few houses down. I always kept my curtains half closed. I don't know how long I'd been asleep before. I felt someone stroking my hair. At first, I thought I was dreaming. The motion was so soft, rhythmic, like fingers running gently across my scalp. Then I heard humming, low and melodic, my favorite lullaby. I recognized it instantly. "Elena," I mumbled, eyes still closed. She didn't answer. I turned slightly and forced my eyes open. There was someone sitting on the edge of my bed. The silhouette looked just like her, same long dark hair, the oversized hoodie she always wore around the house. My stomach tightened. "When'd you get back?" I asked, a little confused, but not scared yet. "Wasn't your trip until tomorrow?" No answer, just a humming. Then, softly, the fingers resumed, brushing across my forehead like she used to do when I was sick. "Elena," I asked again, louder. "Now, you're creeping me out." Still nothing. Then, she leaned in her face, inches from mine. I couldn't see her fully in the dark, but her mouth moved as she whispered, "I'll miss you, Lena." I flinched. Everything in me screamed to move, to sit up, to push her away, but I couldn't. My body had gone rigid. My arms, my legs nothing would obey. I was locked in place, paralyzed. Her whisper lingered in the air like frost, and then she stood, watched as the shape of her drifted across the room and out the door. The humming faded down the hall for a long time. I just laid there, frozen heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. My limbs slowly thawed like I'd been under ice. I sat up, turned on the light. Nothing, no one. I walked down the hall to Elena's room. Her bed was still perfectly made, empty. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and a strange sense of dread. I convinced myself it had all been a dream, a sleep paralysis episode, nothing more. But when I went downstairs, I saw my mom's car already in the driveway. I frowned. They weren't supposed to be home until noon. Inside, I heard sobbing. My dad was sitting at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. My mom stood by the sink, clutching her phone. Her face was pale. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. When she turned to look at me, her lips trembled. I didn't even have to ask Lena. She whispered, there was an accident. The car Lena had been in hit black ice just past the highway bend about 15 minutes from the cabin. It skidded off the road and slammed into a pine. No one in the back seat survived. Elena was in the back seat. They said she died instantly. I don't know how long. I stood there, or what happened in the next few hours. I remembered the taste of bile, the ringing in my ears, the way I collapsed on the floor and screamed. But mostly, I remember her touch, her voice. I'll miss you. In the days after the funeral, I barely ate. I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house sounded like her steps. Every soft breeze sounded like her humming. I didn't tell anyone what I had experienced that night. Not my mom, not my dad, not even the grief counselor they made me talk to. Because how do you explain something like that without sounding insane? And the worst part was this: I wasn't comforted by her visit. I was terrified. There was something off about her that night. It wasn't just that she was quiet or cold. It was how she moved, slow, mechanical. How her voice seemed too distant, like it was coming through water. I started researching not ghosts, not spirits, but people who experienced something similar. Before losing someone, there were thousands of stories. A man saw his brother standing by the edge of his bed hours before getting the call. A mother said she smelled her daughter's perfume minutes before finding out about a fatal crash. A woman swore she heard her husband whisper her name the same moment he died. The skeptic in me wanted to dismiss it all, but the part of me that remembered Elena's icy fingers brushing my hair, the part that felt her there, couldn't. Years passed. I moved away for college, changed cities. I kept a framed picture of Elena by my desk. She was smiling, arms thrown around me on the beach during our last family vacation. Some nights I talked to her quietly, silently, just in case she could still hear me. But I never saw her again, never felt her again, until 9 years later. It was April 18th again. I hadn't realized the date at first. Life had become so full. Work, errands, pills, emails. That morning I got a call from my mom. She sounded okay, reflective. She always lit a candle for Elena on that day. I told her I would. To that night, I went to bed early. I was exhausted from work. I left my lamp on, fell asleep fully clothed, half laying on my blankets, and at 2:46 a.m. I woke up to humming her lullaby. I jolted upright. The room was empty, still quiet, but the air was heavy charged. My phone lit up on the nightstand. I picked it up. One missed call from Dad. I called him back. "Okay?" My hands trembling. He answered on the second ring. He was crying. "It's Grandpa," he said, voice breaking. "He passed about 15 minutes ago." I didn't say anything. I couldn't, because I knew she had come back to prepare me. I don't have the answers. I don't know what kind of boundary lies between the living and the dead. I don't know why Elena came to me that night, or why she returned again years later. Maybe it's all just the mind reaching for connection when grief becomes too sharp. Maybe it's trauma memory triggered by anniversaries and sadness. But maybe love is stronger than death. Maybe some bonds can't be severed, not even by the grave. I still don't talk about that night with many people, but I'm writing it here now for whoever needs to hear it. Not everything that visits you in the night is meant to scare you. Some just want to say goodbye, and some never really leave at all. I always thought having an older sister would be fun. If you know someone to copy, someone to admire. But growing up, my relationship with Alina was more complicated than that. She was 7 years older than me, 18, when I was just turning 11, and we were like day and night. She was calm, calculated, and mysterious. I was loud, curious, and the type of kid who asked too many questions. Back in 2017, my parents bought a small, semi-detached house in a quiet neighborhood in the outskirts of Pune. It was a modest 2-bedroom place with pale yellow walls and squeaky wooden floors, the kind of place that always smelled faintly of damp monsoon air and incense sticks. Since Alina had just finished her board exams and I was still in middle school, our parents decided we should share a room for a while, at least until we could afford to convert the attic or build on an extra space. Our shared room had a bunk bed. She took the bottom because she liked the sense of being enclosed, and I took the top because it made me feel like I was in a spaceship. The window near the top bunk faced the backyard and an old mango tree that scratched the glass. When the wind blew hard enough, nothing seemed out of place during the first few weeks. Alina and I barely talked beyond the usual sibling bickering. She was always glued to her laptop, headphones in, typing away, or watching something. I played on my dad's old tablet until bedtime. Typical stuff. But there was one thing about Alina that always weirded me out. She never smiled in photos. Not one, even from when she was a toddler. No goofy grins, no awkward braces. Smiled during her teen years. Nothing. Just this emotionless straight face, like someone told her not to show too much once. When I asked Mom why, she shrugged and said, "That's just how she is. Some kids are like that." I didn't push it, but I remembered it all started the night after our open house. My parents had hosted it for my dad's side of the family, which meant a lot of unfamiliar uncles, aunties, and screaming. Children running around the house was chaotic until everyone finally left around midnight. I was exhausted, but wired from the leftover Coca-Cola and the cupcakes. I'd sneaked. Alina had gone to bed right after the guests left. Mumbling something about having a headache, I stayed up playing games on my tablet with my back propped against the wall in the living room. The house had quieted down to that strange hush you only get after a noisy day, like it was holding its breath around 2:15 a.m. I finally decided to go to bed. I tiptoed into our room, climbed up to my bunk as quietly as I could, and laid on my back, staring at the ceiling fan. The light from the street lamp outside sliced through the window blinds and cast rotating shadows on the ceiling. It was oddly hypnotic. I drifted off. Then a nightmare began. I was standing in the hallway outside our room. The light under the door was on, and I could hear someone whispering inside. My hands were trembling, but I pushed the door open. Alina was sitting cross-legged on her bed, facing the wall. Her long black hair hung down, partially covering her face. She turned to look at me. Her eyes were entirely white. No pupils, no expression, just white. And then she smiled wide and unnatural, stretching too far as if her cheeks might tear. She opened her mouth and whispered something I couldn't understand. I tried to run, but my body froze. My legs wouldn't move. My chest felt like it was being crushed. I screamed, but no sound came out. And that's when I realized I wasn't asleep. I was experiencing sleep paralysis. I could feel my real body lying stiff on the top bunk, eyes sealed shut, heart hammering in my chest. I could hear the ceiling fan, the occasional auto rickshaw from the main road, but I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even cry properly. Then I felt something grab my hand. It was warm, soft. A voice whispered, "Hey, you okay?" My eyes flew open. It was Alina. She was standing by my bunk, holding my hand, gently looking concerned. I sat up slowly, breath ragged. "Yeah, I just had a nightmare." She nodded. "Go get some water. You'll feel better." Climbed down shakily and walked toward the kitchen, trying to shake off the lingering dread. But as I stepped into the hallway, I suddenly felt watched. I looked back. Alina was still standing there halfway in the doorway, but she was smiling now, that smile from my dream wide. Unblinking teeth showing. I blinked rapidly, and just like that, her expression reset to neutral, like someone flicked a switch. Maybe my brain was still foggy, I told myself. I was imagining things. The kitchen was dark, except for the faint glow of the microwave's clock. I poured myself a glass of water from the steel jug and gulped it down in one go. The air felt colder than it should have. I was about to turn back when I noticed the refrigerator door was slightly open, and someone was standing in front of it, whose eye began, but then I saw her, Alina, wearing the same gray hoodie she'd worn earlier, barefoot, crouched, and rummaging through the lower shelf of the fridge. She looked up and whispered, "She'll wake them. I'm making noodles. Want some?" I nearly dropped the glass. "What? How long have you been here?" She tilted her head. "About 20-30 minutes, trying to find those green chilies Mom bought yesterday." My mouth went dry. I couldn't even form words at first. "You've been here the whole time?" She raised an eyebrow. Yeah? Why? I turned toward the hallway where I had just seen someone else in our room. Someone who had woken me. Someone who had held my hand. I didn't respond. I just shook my head and muttered nothing before backing away toward the living room. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I lay curled on the couch, blanket pulled up to my chin lights. On the next morning, I pretended I had a stomach ache and stayed home from school. I didn't want to be around Alina, but the strange thing was she acted completely normal. She even brought me a bowl of soup and asked how I was feeling, like nothing happened. I didn't tell anyone, not my mom, not my dad, and definitely not Alina. But from that day on, I started noticing more glitches, like how I'd sometimes walk into a room and see her staring into a corner, whispering under her breath, or how one day I opened her wardrobe looking for a comb and found a journal hidden inside, written in a strange, looping language I couldn't recognize. Or how, during the family dinner, my cousin made a joke, and everyone laughed, except Alina. She just stared at him with that same smile, the wide, silent one. Eventually, I refused to sleep in our room. I made excuses at first. "There's mosquitoes in there. It's too cold. The mattress hurts my back." But eventually, I told my mom I was scared of nightmares and wanted to sleep with them. They didn't argue, and from then on, I only went into that room during daylight, and never alone. 7 years have passed since that night. I'm 18 now. We live in a different city. I have my own room. Alina moved to Bangalore for college and barely visits. But sometimes when I'm scrolling through old photos or staring at the mirror brushing my hair, I think about that night, that smile, and I wonder, what if it wasn't just sleep paralysis? What if something else was wearing her face that night? And more importantly, what if it never left? Because 2 weeks ago, during a video call with Alina, my internet glitched. The screen froze for a second, but not entirely. Her face froze, but her smile kept stretching and stretching and stretching until the screen went black. I haven't called her since. She hasn't messaged either, and last night, I swear, as I lay in bed, I felt a hand grab my warm software, and a voice whispered, "Hey, you okay?" I always knew there was something wrong with my sister, not in a loud or obvious way. Not the kind of wrong that screams in public or sets things on fire. It was quieter than that, subtle, patient, unnerving, the kind of wrong you don't notice until it's too late. Her name was Emily. We were close in age. She was 9 and I was 8 when everything began. Our family had just moved into a pale yellow, 2-story house in a quiet cul-de-sac in suburban New Jersey. It had white trim, a red front door, and an attic that always smelled like dust and forgotten things. My parents were thrilled. It was the first house they bought after years of renting apartments, and to them, it symbolized everything they had worked for. To me, it symbolized something else entirely. We moved in during late summer, just before school started. The sun still baked the sidewalks, and the neighborhood kids ran around in flip-flops, chasing each other with water guns. Emily and I were given the bedroom at the end of the hallway upstairs right next to the attic door. My bed was on the left side of the room, under the window. Hers was on the right, next to the closet. The first week passed uneventfully. New house, new school, new routines. Our parents both worked long hours. Dad in construction, Mom at a local clinic. So Emily and I were often alone after school. We'd come home, microwave pizza rolls, and do our homework side by side at the small desk by the window. Then she started acting. Strange, it began with the door. Emily started locking our bedroom door from the inside. Usually in the afternoon, she'd go in alone and tell me to wait outside. When I knocked, she'd yell, "Go away, Lily, I'm busy." I thought she was just being moody, so I'd roll my eyes and head downstairs. But sometimes I'd press my ear to the door, and that's when I'd hear it whispers, low, wet-sounding murmurs, like someone talking through water, and not just one voice too. Sometimes 3I'd knock and ask, "Who are you talking to?" And every time she'd yell back, "No one." She'd never let me in until she was finished, and when she opened the door, she'd always look different. Her hair would be mussed, like someone had been touching it. Her eyes looked glassy, unfocused. Sometimes she smelled like mildew, like something had crawled out of the ground and brushed against her skin. I told our parents. They said she was adjusting, that she was creative, and probably playing make-believe. Mom even smiled and said, "Maybe she'll be a writer one day." But I knew better. One evening in September, I was woken up by the sound of Emily whispering in the dark. It wasn't unusual. She'd started talking in her sleep, but this time it sounded like she was responding to someone. I sat up in bed and listened. "Don't want to." "No, it's hers," I said. "No." Her voice trembled, and then abruptly she giggled, a low, unnatural giggle that made my skin crawl. I turned on my lamp. Emily. She was sitting straight up in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the closet. "What are you doing?" She slowly turned her head toward me, but her expression didn't change. She blinked once, then smiled. "He likes her hair." I stared at her, who she pointed at the closet. "The man in the wall." I didn't sleep that night. October arrived and things got worse. Emily stopped eating properly. She'd pick at her food and mutter to herself during dinner. Sometimes she'd laugh when no one said anything. Other times she'd just sit there staring into space, one hand twitching slightly like she was counting something on her fingers. Then there were the drawings. I found them in her backpack, crumpled notebook pages filled with disturbing sketches, stick figures hanging from trees, dark shadowy shapes crawling from vents, wide-eyed girls with their mouths stitched shut. In every drawing there was a door, and behind the door a black figure with no face. I showed the drawings to Mom. She sighed, said, "She's going through a phase." Dad grunted, "Tell her to knock it off. It's scaring your sister." They talked to her that night. I heard them from the hallway. I couldn't make out all the words, but I remember hearing Emily say, "He told me not to stop." Later that night, she whispered through my blanket, "He doesn't like it when they yell." Then came the day of the closet. It was a Saturday. Our parents were out for groceries. Emily and I were supposed to be cleaning our room. She'd barely said a word all morning. I was picking up socks from under the bed when I noticed the closet door was slightly ajar. I hate that closet. Always have something about the way it smelled like old wood. Curiosity got the better of me. I pulled the door open. At first, it was just closed. Then I noticed a strange dark smear on the back wall. I leaned in closer. It looked like handprints. Small, childlike handprints made in something dark and sticky blood. Suddenly, Emily screamed. I turned around, and she was standing on the bed, eyes wild, pointing at me. "Don't go in there," he said not to. I stumbled back. "What are you talking about?" She dropped to the floor, crawled toward me, and slammed the closet shut with both hands. He said, "If you open it again, he'll take you instead." That night, I heard scratching inside the walls, like nails dragging against the wood. I cried. My parents came in, turned on the light, checked under the bed, in the closet, found nothing. Emily just watched from her bed, silent. When Mom asked if she heard the noise, she smiled and said, "He's quieter when he's happy." By November, Emily was barely human. She stopped going to school, stopped speaking. She just sat in our room all day, staring at the wall, her lips moving, but no sound coming out. I started sleeping on the couch downstairs one night. I woke up to someone breathing inches from my ear. I sat up. No one was there, but on the coffee table was a note written in crayon. "You're next." I recognized Emily's handwriting. I begged my parents to do something, take her to a doctor, a therapist, anything, but they were deep in denial. Kids go through weird phases. Dad muttered, "Don't fill her head with horror movies," even when Emily smeared something red on the hallway walls. They said it was just paint. It wasn't. September 10th. I remembered the date. That was the day I came home and found the bedroom door wide open for the first time in weeks. Emily wasn't inside, but the closet was open. I stepped closer inside. There was a hole no bigger than a dog door, carved crudely into the back wall. The handprints were darker, now more defined. I should have run, screamed, called for help instead. So I crawled through it. On the other side was darkness and a smell that nearly made me throw up, like rot in old meat. Then I heard whispering, dozens of voices. Some were children, some were not. Then a hand grabbed my ankle. I screamed and scrambled backward, falling into our room. I slammed the closet shut, panting, heart racing. Emily was standing at the door. Her face was expressionless. He said, "You weren't ready yet," she whispered. But soon, that night, my parents finally believed me, because they woke up to the sound of Emily screaming. They found her standing in front of the closet, covered in scratches. Her eyes rolled back, and she kept chanting, "Don't let him in, don't let him in, don't let him in." They took her to the hospital. She never came back. The house is quiet now. I sleep in a different room. The old bedroom is locked. The closet has been nailed shut. My parents don't talk about Emily. She was sent to a psychiatric facility 3 towns over. I'm not allowed to visit sometimes. I still hear scratching in the walls sometimes. I find crayon notes slipped under my door. He still remembers. "You're next." And sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, I see her standing in the hallway, smiling, whispering, "He chose me first, but he likes you more." I never liked sleeping with my hair wet. My sister Liana always said that I remember it so clearly because she said it like a joke, but I knew she wasn't really joking. She was 2 years older than me, effortlessly graceful, with long black hair that shimmered in sunlight and fell like silk down her back. People always compared us, said she looked like a movie star, while I was the quiet, bookish one. But I didn't mind. She was my sister, and I adored her. We grew up in a small town called Rivermore, nestled between rice fields and stretches of forest that seemed to swallow sound. Our house was old, made of dark wood and cool cement floors, and had a massive neem tree outside Liana's bedroom window. Every year, that tree became home. 2 blackbirds and crows that caught at odd hours. Sometimes, in the middle of summer, the air would thicken with their cries, shrill, insistent, almost human. Our grandmother used to warn us about the tree. "Don't sit with your hair open near the window. When they're nesting," she'd say, "they're not birds, not always." We laughed it off, of course. What child really listens to old village stories? But now, I wish we had. 2011, the summer, everything changed. Liana was 17, I was 15. That summer was unbearably hot. The kind of sticky, suffocating heat that makes your skin feel too tight. Our parents had gone to Calcutta for a week to visit our aunt in the hospital that left just the 2 of us at home with our cousin Dash and his friend Ryu, who were crashing with us for a few days during their break from college. That week was fun at first. Lazy afternoons, board games, silly horror movies at night. Liana, always the show-off, insisted on eating her meals by the window, claiming it was cooler there. One day, during lunch, she noticed a crow sitting on the sill. It wasn't unusual, but this one just stared at her. Didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. She tossed at a bit of rice. It didn't eat, just kept looking. "It's like it knows me." "Okay," she said, laughing nervously. From then on, it came back every day, same time, Same stare. By the third day, she had a plate ready for it: rice, a piece of meat, some vegetables. She's got a pet crow now, Desh joked, filming it on his phone that night. Liana couldn't finish her dinner. She said she was full, but I noticed something strange. She seemed dazed, slow, like she wasn't really in the room. You okay? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then she whispered, I can hear it, calling. That was the first time I saw her walk in her sleep. It was past 2:00 a.m. I heard the refrigerator slam, then the sound of breaking glass. When I got to the kitchen, Liana was standing barefoot, fridge wide open, bottles shattered on the floor. She was chewing fast, aggressive, stuffing cold rotis into her mouth like an animal. Liana, I stepped closer. What are you doing? She turned around, and, swear to God, her eyes weren't hers. They were black, not the usual brown, but black all the way through. She snarled at me, low and guttural, before collapsing on the floor. The fever came the next day. It burned through her like fire. 104.8. She was delirious, mumbling in a language none of us understood. Her body jerked violently at night, and she would sometimes sit straight up and scream. We took her to the local doctor. He said it was probably heat stroke, maybe a viral infection. Gave her paracetamol fluids and told us to monitor her, but it got worse. She refused to eat during the day and then raided the kitchen at night. We locked the fridge. She broke the lock. Desh tried to confront her once. During one of these fits, she threw him across the room like he weighed nothing. I'm telling you, that's not your sister Ryu. Whispered to me one night, something's wrong with her. I agreed, but didn't know what to do. When Mom returned, she screamed the moment she saw Liana, not because she looked sick, but because of the way she moved. She was crawling on all fours backwards, her head tilted at an impossible angle. I want to go home, Liana hissed, her voice sounding double-layered, as if someone else was speaking with her. We brought in a neurologist. Nothing abnormal, and scans the blood tests. Clean, no explanation. The priest came next. Father Samson wasn't one of those dramatic exorcists. He was calm, skeptical, even until he placed his hand on Liana's forehead and whispered a prayer. She laughed, not just laughed, roared her head, snapped back, and a voice, ancient, hoarse, not human, came from her lips. 7. There are 7 of us. She fed us. She called us. She belongs to us now. He froze. Why? Her the voice answered. In a chorus, she opened her hair, she opened her window, she opened herself. He stepped back and crossed himself. The cleansing took days. Nights of prayer, chants, incense, salt lights, and blood. Liana screamed like her soul was being torn apart. Our mother wept until she collapsed. I stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, feeling her bones twitch under my fingers. Okay. The final prayer ended with the sound of crows screaming outside her window, all at once, like they were dying. Then silence. The priest gave her a silver chain with a pendant, an ancient symbol etched into the metal. She must wear this always. He said, never remove it. If she does, they will come back, and next time, they won't leave. Things calmed down. Liana returned to school, but she was never the same. The brightness in her eyes never came back. She was quieter, distant. She often stared out of windows, almost in a trance. The birds never came back, not a single one. Years passed. She got married in 2018 to a kind man named Rohit. They tried for children. The first pregnancy ended in a miscarriage at 5 months. Doctor said the fetus stopped growing. The second, same thing, no reason. The third, in 2023, ended in emergency surgery. She nearly died. She gave up trying. They adopted a little girl last year. Liana loves her deeply, but even now, sometimes when I visit, I see her brushing her daughter's hair carefully, methodically, while whispering under her breath, independent. It's gone, she said. She lost it during their last trip. I told her to go back to the priest. She laughed and said, don't worry, they wouldn't hurt her mother. But some nights, I still hear the crows, far away, but coming closer, and last week her daughter woke up screaming. Mama was flying in the room, she cried. Her was floating, and there were birds in the dark. I sleep with my lights on now, and I never leave my window open, not with my hair down. because I remember what Leanna told me after her first miscarriage. Her voice, barely above a whisper, they said, I'd never be a mother, that if I tried, they'd take it, and she was right some things. Never let go. I was 13 when my family moved to a remote village called San Rafael del Norte, quiet place tucked deep in the Visayan region of the Philippines. We'd lived in Pilid City before loud streets, traffic horns, people always bustling around. But after my dad died in an accident, my mom wanted somewhere peaceful to start over, somewhere cheaper too, if I'm being honest. So she found a house for rent near the mountains where there was no Wi-Fi, barely any phone signal, and the neighbors lived far enough apart that you could scream and no one would hear you. It was just the three of us, my mom, my older sister, Marielle, and me, Amiza. My mom always said Marielle and I were lucky to have each other, especially now. But the truth is, we were never that close. She was 16, then moody, quiet, always lost in her sketchpad. She barely spoke to me after we moved in, except to tell me to knock. Before entering her room, the house was old, but decent. A 2-bedroom, wooden structure with a rusty tin roof and creaky floors. The owner, an old man named Lo Mateo, lived in the only other house visible from ours. If you girls need anything, he told my mom during the handoff, just shout. Loud sound travels fast in the hills. We settled in quickly. I started school in the nearby barangay, 30-minute walk away, and Maria was homeschooled online with a prepaid data stick. We didn't make friends. There weren't many kids nearby, and we mostly stayed indoors, especially after dusk. The first time something strange happened, it was so subtle, I thought. I imagined it. It was late August, around 10:30 p.m. I'd gone to the kitchen for water when I heard Marielle talking in her room. That wasn't weird. She sometimes called her friends or watched Kramas on her phone, but her voice sounded wrong, slurred, like she was trying to speak underwater. I crept closer, listening through her door. Marielle, I whispered. Silence. Then softly, I heard her say, "Don't open the door." I froze. Her voice came from the other side, calm but firm. "Go to sleep, Isa." My heart kicked. I didn't say anything. Nothing. I stood there for a while, staring at the wood grain before quietly backing away. The next morning, at breakfast, she didn't mention it. I asked if she was okay, and she just looked at me like I was annoying her. "Why wouldn't I be?" she said, stabbing a spoon into her rice. So I let it go, but that night changed everything. About 2 weeks later, on a Sunday night, I stayed up late watching a K-drama on our small living room TV. My mom had fallen asleep on the couch beside me, and Marielle was in her room as usual. Around 1:20 a.m., the power cut off, pitch black. I sat frozen for a second before grabbing the flashlight from the drawer. Just as I switched it on, I heard scratching lights, scraping like nails on what it came from. Marielle's room. Then her voice, "Isa." It was a whisper, barely audible through the thin door. "Isa, come here." I felt something cold crawl up my spine. My feet moved before my brain could stop them. I approached slowly. She whispered again, "It's in here with me." "What is?" I whispered back. Silence. Marielle still. No answer. I placed my ear to the door, listening. Then I heard her breathing, ragged, shaky, like she was crying. I reached for the doorknob. "Don't open it," she screamed. I jumped back. My flashlight flickered. That scream woke my mom, who stumbled into the hallway, rubbing her eyes. "What's going on?" I stammered. Marielle said something's in her room, she screamed. My mom tried the door locked. "Marielle," she shouted, "open this door." Nothing. After a few tense minutes, we heard the click of the lock. The door creaked open. Marielle stood there, her face pale, her hands trembling. There was something by my window, watching me. We rushed inside. Her curtains were drawn, and when my mom flung them open, nothing was there, but the window latch was unhooked. My mom checked outside with a flashlight. No footprints, nothing out of place. We all slept in the living room that night, or at least tried to. Over the next few days, Marielle changed, not in huge, dramatic ways, just little things that I noticed. First, she started drawing things she never used to. Dark Forests, shadows, behind windows, people with blank faces. She barely ate her eyes, looked heavy, like she hadn't slept. When I asked if she was okay, she'd smile, but not with her eyes. Then came the voice. One night I woke up, needing to pee as I passed the kitchen. I heard murmuring. I thought my mom was up, maybe talking to someone on the phone. But when I peeked around the corner, I saw Marielle standing in the middle of the kitchen, her back to me, whispering to the empty wall. I couldn't hear what she said, but the tone was different, loving, almost affectionate. She leaned in close to the wall, as if listening to something whispering back. Then she slowly turned around. Her eyes found me instantly. Issa, she said, you shouldn't be up. I didn't answer. I just backed away. I said, go to bed. I obeyed. Things got worse quickly. My mom started noticing too. She'd find her drawing obsessively at 3 a.m., muttering words that made no sense. One day, Marielle refused to eat or speak the entire day. That night, she attacked my mom, scratched her arm so hard it bled when she tried to take her phone away. I'm not done talking to her, Marielle had growled. Who? I asked. The one who looks like you, she whispered. The breaking point came a week later. I woke up to screaming, not Marielle's, but my mom's. I bolted into the hallway and found her standing outside Marielle's room, her face white with shock. The door was wide open. The room was trashed papers, scattered dresser, knocked over curtains, shredded, but Marielle was gone. We searched everywhere, called Lo Mateo, called the neighbors, called the barangay. Captain nothing. She'd vanished until sunrise. That's when I found her standing in our backyard, barefoot, covered in mud. She was staring up at the mango tree, like she saw something none of us could. When I touched her shoulder, she turned to me slowly. It's not done with me yet, she whispered. We brought in a man in Namble, a local healer recommended by Lo Mateo. He did a ritual in Marielle's room, burning herbs and chanting in Vizian. He told us something dark had attached itself to her, something old. It came to her the night you heard the whispering, he said. Spirits like that, they mimic voices. They make you trust them. He told us it might leave on its own, or it might not. If she listens to it again, he warned, it could take her soul for good. It's been almost 2 years since then. We moved out. 6 months later, back to Balo. Once we had enough money. Marielle's better now. Mostly, she doesn't draw anymore. She barely talks, but at least she sleeps through the night sometimes though. Still catch her staring at dark corners of her room, like she's listening for a voice I can't hear. And once, just once, I caught her talking in her sleep. It's still here, she mumbled, eyes shut. Then she smiled. I was 11 when I started to believe my sister wasn't really my sister anymore. We had just moved to Carver, Illinois, a small town about an hour outside Chicago. Quiet, a little too quiet. My dad had landed a new job managing a warehouse, and the company offered relocation assistance. That meant a new school, new neighbors, and a new house on a dead-end street lined with nearly identical homes. It had that suffocating suburban feel where everything looks fine on the outside, but feels wrong the second you're alone. My mom, Alyssa, was thrilled at first. It's a fresh start, she kept saying. Someplace it's peaceful. She liked the double garage and the backyard swing set that came with the place. My dad, Brian, seemed glad just to be working again after almost a year of unemployment. Me, I was okay until my sister, Ava, changed. Ava was 13, bookish, smart, and usually the kind of sister who'd help me with homework one day and ignore me the next. We had our fights, like any siblings, but she'd never scared me before it started. The second week after we moved in, it was a Sunday. Rain hammered the roof while I sat on the living room floor, building a Lego spaceship. Mom was in the kitchen, humming to Fleetwood Mac, and Dad was fixing the back door hinge that wouldn't shut all the way. Ava came down the stairs, holding a piece of paper. Look what I made, she said, voice flat. She handed me a drawing, done in black marker, for figures, 2 tall ones, 2 short ones, United States. But our eyes were missing. Why don't we have faces? I asked. She didn't answer, just tilted her head and smiled in this slow, odd way. "It's just a drawing, Eli." Then she ripped it in half, dropped the pieces on the floor, and walked back upstairs. I told Mom, and she just shrugged. "She's a teenager. You were weird at her age too. I'm 11. You'll understand when you're 13. There was something wrong with that house, and maybe." We all felt it in different ways. My room was next to Ava's, and almost every night I heard her whispering at first. I thought it was just late-night phone calls, but Ava didn't have a phone. Mom took hers away, 'cause she got caught chatting with some college guy on Instagram. Sometimes I heard giggling, other times it sounded like chanting, not English, not anything I recognized. I told Dad once he walked upstairs, knocked, and opened her door. Ava was sitting on the floor, and the dark eyes wide open, just staring. No music, no whispering. She said, before he even asked, he looked back at me and rolled his eyes, "You're dreaming, kiddo." But I knew I wasn't. 3 weeks, and my parents hired a housekeeper named Yolanda to help clean while they were at work. She was this warm woman in her 50s with a southern accent and a big loud laugh that echoed through the house. I liked her immediately. Ava hated her first day. Yolanda came out of the upstairs bathroom looking confused. "She got something strange in there," she said to my mom. "What do you mean?" Mom asked. "Little bundles wrapped in red thread under the sink like dolls or something. Kinda smells like copper." My mom went upstairs, checked, and came down, pale-faced. "Just tossed them out," she told Yolanda. "Probably something from the previous tenants." Yolanda didn't argue, but she didn't smile much after that either. 2 days later, she quit. She quit. "No offense, ma'am, but there's something wrong in that house, especially that girl's room." We didn't get another housekeeper after that. The accident started. Small mom cut her hand badly, slicing lemons. Dad slipped on the basement steps and bruised his ribs. I cracked my head open when the shower rod fell while I was bathing. And Ava always seemed to be standing just a little too close, like she was watching. We brushed it off. What else can you do? But then Ava started getting hurt too. She showed up at breakfast one day with 3 long scratches on her back. "Where'd you get those?" Dad asked. "In my sleep, I guess." That same day, I found her drawing again, this time. Okay. It wasn't us. It was our parents. Just them lying in beds with red circles drawn over their faces. The paper was hidden behind her mirror. The worst night came. 2 months in, I was lying in bed, facing the wall. Ava's room was quiet, but I had that crawling feeling like I was being watched. When turned over, there was a figure in the hallway, a girl, long black hair, a pale nightgown, standing still to still my heart. Stopped. It was Ava, or it looked like her, but her mouth was open like she was silently screaming, and she wasn't moving. Staring, I screamed, and she vanished. My parents ran in and turned on all the lights. Ava was in her bed, asleep. I saw her. I kept saying in the hallway. My dad checked every room. The doors were locked, windows shut, alarm still armed. "You were dreaming," Mom said. I wasn't. A week later, Ava stopped eating. She sat at the table and just pushed food around. Wouldn't talk, wouldn't blink much. She kept staring at her own reflection. Mirrors, windows, the microwave, like she was afraid it would move without her. One morning, I found her in the bathroom, just standing there. "You okay?" She turned slowly. She likes it when I'm quiet. Who? She didn't answer that night. The mirror in the hallway cracked from the inside, like something had punched it. I cornered her in the garage 2 days later. "Tell me what's going on," I said. "What's wrong with you?" She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just looked at me like, I was stupid. She asked me to who she's under the house. She talks through the floor when it rains. I laughed because it was too weird to believe. "I made a trade," she whispered, "so we could stay here, so things would be okay. But she wants more now." "What did you give her?" She smiled. "You'll see." 2 nights later, the kitchen caught fire. No one knows how. Dad said it must have been a faulty toaster, but it wasn't plugged in. We made it out okay, but Ava didn't come out until the last second when firefighters dragged her out. She was still holding that same drawing, 4 figures. This time, 3 were burning. 1 was whole. Guess which one? We left Carver a week later. My parents didn't say much. Ava was admitted to a psychiatric care facility after she tried to hurt herself. She said the girl under the house was still waiting, that she hadn't finished what she started, the therapist said. It was trauma, repressed emotions, imagination. I never believed that it's been 7 years. We live in Milwaukee now. A smaller apartment, fewer mirrors. I'm in college. I sleep with a nightlight Ava. She's still in care sometimes. She talks. Mostly, she just stares. Last week, I got a letter from her. No return address. Just 4 words. She hasn't forgotten you. And a drawing, 2 figures me in something standing just behind me. I was 11 the first time I saw her. Not in a photo or in a story, but really saw her. Let me start from the beginning, because this isn't something you can just throw at someone. It needs to be understood fully. My name is Lena Waller, and this happened in Lamont, Delano, in the fall of 2007. We had just moved there a few months earlier, me and my mom, after her divorce from my dad. I didn't know the full details back then. I just knew that my dad wasn't coming back and that we were starting over. I hated those words. They sounded like cleaning a chalkboard. Cold, flat, empty. The house we moved into was small, 1 floor, 2 bedrooms, a creaky little hallway that always smelled like laundry and something burnt. We had a tiny backyard and a half-dead tree that scraped the back window when it was windy. Mom spent most of her time in the sunroom that faced the yard. She'd smoke there, even though she promised she quit. She thought spraying air freshener afterward fooled me, but it never did. I wasn't close with her, not really. I think she tried, but she had her own ways of escaping. Her body was there, but her mind often wasn't. Some nights, she was quiet and sweet, making spaghetti with meatballs and watching cartoons with me. Other nights, she was loud. She'd cry on the phone with people I didn't know, or she'd get angry for no reason at all. I learned to just tiptoe around her moods like a cat walking across a tightrope. School was my safe place. I wasn't the most popular kid, awkward braces, glasses too big for my face, but I liked books, and I had one friend, Tessa. She was loud and funny and always wore mismatched socks. She used to say I looked like a haunted librarian, and it somehow made me feel pretty. But no matter how school went, I always hated going home, not because it was scary, but because it was heavy. Now, here's something important. I had an older sister. Her name was Maya, but I never met her. She died at birth 2 years before I was born. My mom used to say her name like it was sugar on her tongue, like a word she wished never stopped existing. I asked about Maya a lot when I was younger. What color were her eyes? Did she have hair? Was she bigger than me? Eventually, my mom stopped answering. She'd just say, "She's in a better place, okay," and then pour herself another glass of red wine. As a kid, I felt like Maya was a ghost that haunted only my mother. But all that changed one October night. It was a Thursday. I remember, because Thursday nights were soup nights. I always made soup for my mom, chicken noodle from a can with extra carrots, because she said the orange helped her anxiety. I did it every week since she got sick earlier that year. That night, the weather turned ugly. The wind howled like wolves, and the windows shivered in their frames. Mom had been acting strange all day. Her eyes looked distant, glassy, unfocused. She barely touched the grilled cheese I made her for lunch. When I asked if she was okay, she just nodded. "I'm fine, Lena, just tired." But it wasn't the kind of tired you could sleep off. She kept looking past me, like I wasn't the one she expected to see. By 1000 p.m., I went to bed, and that's when the real nightmare began. I woke up, standing not in my room, not anywhere. I recognized it was a forest. A damp, foggy trail stretched out before me, framed by trees that reached high into a starless sky. The path was muddy and smelled like wet leaves and something rotting. "Hello?" I called out, shivering. No answer until I heard the crunch of footsteps behind me. I spun around and saw a girl, tall, almost unnaturally so, maybe 7 feet, pale skin, long brown hair that clung to her face like it was soaked in oil. But her eyes were soft brown with a glint of sadness. and on her left cheek I saw a faint crescent-shaped birthmark, the one my mom always described when she talked about Maya. I whispered. She smiled a crooked, uneasy smile. "I missed you," she said, in a voice like wind chimes on a rainy day. "Do you want to have a tea party?" I don't know why, but I nodded. Maybe it was the loneliness. Maybe it was the warmth in her tone. Maybe I just wanted a sister. She led me deeper into the woods, to a clearing where a rusted iron table sat surrounded by wilting flowers and broken chairs to teacups were set neatly on cracked saucers. Steam curled up from one. "I made your favorite," she said. I sat, my hands trembled. She poured the tea. It smelled like lemon and honey, just like the one my dad used to make before the divorce. I sipped it warm, familiar, comforting for a moment. I felt safe. "I've been waiting," Maya said, suddenly, her voice lower, watching what you with her. My mom, Maya, didn't blink. Her lips twitched into a grimace. "She doesn't deserve you. She doesn't even see you. I should have lived." "Not you?" I froze. "What, she let me die?" "She didn't fight for me, but she fought for you. She fed you, touched you, sang to you." Her face twisted. "I hate her," Maya whispered, "and I hate you for taking what was mine." Her voice dropped an octave. "She's not well, Lena. Tomorrow is Friday. You'll make her soup like always, but she won't wake up. Not after that." My skin crawled. "What do you mean?" Maya leaned closer. Her eyes were now red, bloodshot, wild. Her breath smelled like something decayed. "She won't wake up unless I get to take your place. Let me in, Lena. Let me wear your skin. Just for a while." I stood up, knocking the chair back. I have to go," she snarled. Her teeth were sharp, jagged. Her face stretched, her limbs elongated until her fingers scraped the ground. "You took my spot," she shrieked. "Give it back." I ran branches, slapped my face. My lungs burned. I could hear her behind me, crawling, snarling, whispering. "I need her to die. She'll be mine again." Then, darkness. I woke up, tangled in my blanket, gasping for air. The clock read 5:15 a.m. My school wake-up time. I tried to shake the dream off. It felt too real, but I told myself it wasn't. I went to school, sat through Math 8K, my sandwich, walked home like always, but I couldn't shake her voice. I came home and did what I always did. Made soup, carrots, chicken noodles, just like every Thursday. Then the phone rang. It was my dad. "Where's your mother, Lena?" he asked, his voice sharp. "She's in the sunroom," I said, casually, passed out on the floor. Silence. "Lena, go check on her right now." I walked to the sunroom. Mom, no response. She was curled up, unmoving, her face pale, lips cracked. Her cigarette had burned down to the filter. Mom cranked again, nudging her shoulder. Nothing. My dad was still on the line. "I'm sending your aunt and uncle. Pack your bag." When they arrived, they stormed in like a hurricane. My aunt screamed. My uncle called 911. And then my mother sat up, eyes open, but not like before. Wild, glowing almost. "I'm not going," she hissed. Everyone froze. The paramedics tried to calm her down, but she fought, teeth clenched, inhuman. Eventually, they let her stay. But I was taken to my aunt's house later that night. My dad came to pick me up. We crept past her room in silence. She was asleep. It's peaceful. The next morning, she was back to normal, like nothing had happened. But I couldn't stop thinking about Maya. Her voice, her threat. I looked at my mom during breakfast. She smiled at me, but I saw it just for a split second. Behind her pupils, the red glint, the shadow I never told anyone, not even Tessa, but sometimes in the fog, I still hear Maya's voice, and sometimes late at night, my mother hums a lullaby she never sang before, the same one Maya told me about in the woods. I never believed in anything supernatural, demons, spirits, ghosts. It all sounded like exaggerated stories, made up to entertain bored people or justify something tragic. I'm a rational person. I've always been the oldest sibling, the caretaker, the grounded one. But what happened last fall changed all of that. My name is E.A. Harper. I'm 24 years old, and I was working remotely from home after finishing my graduate degree when our parents planned their long-awaited vacation to Spain. I offered to stay back and look after my younger siblings. Ethan and Rain's mom was hesitant at first, especially with how Rain had been acting recently, but I convinced her. After all, it was just 1 week, and I knew them better than anyone. But by the fourth night, I realized I didn't know Rain at all. Rain had always been a quiet, artistic girl. She loved sketching, especially creepy things, like skeletons, insects, and mythical creatures. She wasn't antisocial, just different. Last year, she and I were in a bad car crash when I picked her up from school. A drunk driver ran a red light and smashed into us. I had a concussion and a fractured collarbone. Rain, she was clinically dead for 2 minutes. They revived her, and she spent weeks in the ICU. Doctors called it a miracle. Mom cried every day and called it God's grace. But Rain came back, changed. At first, we thought it was trauma. She was quieter, slept more, stopped drawing. Then came the headaches, the odd sleepwalking, the faint smells of something rotten coming from her room, which she blamed on our old house plumbing. Small things easily dismissed, but in that week alone, with her and Ethan, the truth unwrapped itself like a wet, rotting bandage. Text me if anything happens, Mom said on the phone, her voice muffled by when Rain's been doing better, right? Yeah, I lied. Go enjoy the beach. I got this. That night was uneventful. We ordered pizza, Ethan played Xbox, and Rain stayed in her room. I peeked in on her once. She was sitting on her bed, in the dark, eyes open, just staring at the bed corner. Hey, Rain. She blinked slowly. Yeah, you good? Yeah, that was it. No emotion, just stillness. I chalked it up to post-crash trauma and closed the door. It started around 2:30 a.m. Heard something tapping, then scratching. I sat up in bed, blinking in the dark. It was soft, erratic, not mice, not the heater. It sounded like nails on drywall. I tiptoed into the hallway. Ethan's door was shut. So was Rain's. But the noise came from the ceiling. I looked up, and I swear for just a second, I saw a dark outline pressed against the attic door, like someone was crawling across the ceiling. My heart jumped, but when I blinked, it was gone. Ethan came downstairs, pale. Issa, something's wrong with Rain, he said quietly. I put my coffee down. What do you mean? She was in the kitchen at like 4 o'clock a.m. I thought she was sleepwalking, but she was on the floor, crawling in circles, whispering something. What was she whispering? He swallowed. She was saying my name. Akand. I looked at him carefully. He wasn't joking. That night, I placed a baby monitor in Rain's room while she was brushing her teeth. I hid it behind some books on her shelf. She didn't notice. At 2:12 a.m., I woke to the sound of chewing, wet, deliberate chewing. Then whispers, not in English, not in any language. I recognized. I couldn't stop shaking. We confronted her at breakfast. Rain, do you remember anything from last night? I asked. She didn't look up from her serial number. While you were up, walking around, whispering. She paused, spoon, midair. I don't sleep well anymore. Why not? She looked at me, then Ethan. I hear them, who her eyes darkened, the ones inside the walls. I froze. What did they say? They want me to open the door? What door? But she just got up, walked away, and left her cereal untouched. I called my friend Julia, who studied psychology. Could this be sleepwalking or dissociation? I asked. She hesitated. Maybe, but crawling on walls, that sounds not medical. What if she's faking? Then you'd still hear her climbing furniture, right? You'd catch her in the act. You're telling me she's on the ceiling with no sound? I didn't know what to say that night. Ethan screamed. I ran to his room and found his door scratched, deep gouges, like from claws. He was inside, sobbing. He said Rain had tried to open the door with her teeth. I ran to find her. She was outside, barefoot in the snow, standing perfectly still in the backyard. Eyes open, arms lifted toward the sky, mouth full of blood. I didn't sleep. I sat by Ethan's room with a baseball bat in my lap. Every so often, I'd hear her giggle or whisper through the vents. Around 3 o'clock a.m., I heard movement. I checked the baby monitor. Rain was gone. I ran to her room. It was empty. her window open. I bolted outside. She was on the roof, not standing, clinging to it, face pressed against the shingles, body twisted unnaturally. I screamed her name. She turned slowly, her neck bending too far like an owl, and smiled. I threw up right there on the lawn. I booked a hotel for Ethan and me. I couldn't do this anymore. We just needed to get through one more night. I set up old GoPro cameras I had from college. One in Rain's room, one in the hallway, one in the kitchen. She didn't speak all day. At 1:44 a.m., I heard a knock on my door. It was her. "Can I sleep with you tonight?" she asked. I nodded. I didn't know what else to do. She curled up at the edge of my bed. I didn't sleep. She didn't blink. Not once. I woke up. She was gone. I ran to her room, empty. Ethan's room, untouched. The kitchen. The back door was open. I stepped outside and screamed. Rain was lying in the grass, eyes open, face pale, blood dried on her hands. "Rain," she blinked. "It's quiet now," she whispered. "What is the house? It's quiet inside." We rushed her to the hospital. She had a fever of 104. They said it was meningitis, possibly triggered by the trauma of the accident. They sedated her, ran tests. The doctors had no explanation for her strength, her behaviors, or her hallucinations. Mom and Dad flew back the next day. Ethan refuses to speak about that week. The doctors eventually diagnosed Rain with something they call tremendous dissociative psychosis, but no one could explain the crawling. The ceiling footage mysteriously deleted itself. The last clip I have a frame from the hallway camera. Rain walking backward on all fours, her mouth whispering, and behind her in the shadows, shape, a tall, thin, twisting thing with hollow eyes. I don't live in that house anymore. I see her sometimes, though, in the corner of my dreams, still whispering to someone I can't see. She says the door is still there. And someday she'll open it again. She'll open it again for all of us.